Welcome. My name is Claire Bond and I'm a colour specialist. I have a diploma in colour therapeutics, which basically translated means I'm a colour psychologist. I work alongside architects, interior designers and private individuals. And the one thing I've learned working on projects and doing my research for projects is that to use colour to its full effect is to understand the influence colour has on us on a mental, physical and emotional level. By studying the brain, neuroscientists look at brain patterns. There are now dedicated firms looking at different iterations of colour and how it affects our behaviour. Mental stress, anxiety, insomnia, post-COVID have been publicly acknowledged, leading the way for wellness and well-being in design to be top of mind. Professionals are now helping clients deal with insomnia and these anxiety-related conditions by using smart technology. We now have bioresponsive pillows, smart technology that purifies the air, lighting systems that have circadian rhythms, and there are so many more wonderful technologies. Another one is blackout textile technology. The information I provide you with today will help you select the right colour for the right reason, be it to identify a brand personality, sell a product to the right target market, or create a space for wellness and well-being. Keep in mind that 80% of our sensory impulses are derived from our visual system, and research has shown this is exactly why colour boosts brand recognition. Let's talk about light. We all know without light, there's no colour. Colour does not exist technically. Colour exists when our brain interprets the signals it receives. When pure white light passes through a spectrum, it causes refraction. And the 7 visible colours on the electromagnetic spectrum can be seen as red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, blue and violet, our rainbow colours. Now, when light enters our eye, it triggers the cone and initiates a chemical release, which then initiates an electrical message to the brain. That message then moves on to the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland are master glands that control our nervous system. These glands also control our sleep-wake cycle, our temperature gauge, and our appetite control. And the list goes on. And the point I'm trying to make is that colour is not just a visual stimulus. A fun fact: research has shown that women do see more colour than men. The gene that allows us to see colour sits on the X chromosome, and women have 2 X chromosomes. So people with the extra chromosome are able to differentiate between the different hues. So while some of us may be able to differentiate the signal red from the maroon, from the mushroom into a raspberry, other colours might just see an image as light or dark red. Now, men are better at seeing fast-moving objects from a distance. And a possible explanation for this could go back to our hunter-gatherer days. But coming back to a woman's chromatic sensitivity, it was probably for the survival of our species as she went about finding edible red berries to feed her family. Part of our humanness is that we have an instinctive response to colour. When we look at a visual of an elderly lady in a large, colourful Panama hat, what do we see in this visual image? We see form, we see scale, we see colour, we see shape, we see colour temperature. But colour is a feeling. So what emotion does this image elicit for you? For me, the adjective to describe it would be happy. Now, this next slide has a completely different feeling. It'll evoke a completely different emotion. As you look at this slide, you'll notice that there are lots of curves and circles and different colors. Now, I look at that moody blue and it actually makes me feel uneasy. But color's subjective, and it really does depend on the scenario you're using it in and the person who's being exposed to that color. As I look further away and into the center of the slide, I'm able to see more indigo, and it gets much lighter. And immediately, there's a completely different feeling. Suddenly, that anxiety disappears, and there's definitely a feeling of relaxation and peace. The reason I'm going through this exercise, and I wanted people to identify with these slides, is because you have to experience color. Because color is a feeling. And if you take the time to slow down, be it in nature, or just take 15 minutes in a day in your busy urban environment to calm your nervous system down, you will start to notice that certain harmonies relax you, while other colors stimulate you, wake you up, and make you feel much more alert. So this is just an observation lesson that I think you need to take quite seriously, because it will definitely help you specify the right color on projects for the right reason. There are many facets to the language of color, and understanding the relationship between color psychology and physiology goes a long way when you're tailoring commercial environments for increased productivity and wellness. In Chinese medicine, the 7 visible colors on the electromagnetic spectrum are linked to the 7 energy meridians that run from the base of our body right through to the top of the head. These areas, or as the Chinese call them, chakras, are called root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, pituitary, and the crown meridians. Now, what happens here, when these meridians are exposed to certain colors, they are either relaxed or they're stimulated. If you look at a color wheel, the color wheel is split into 2 halves. You have the warm side with the wonderful warm reds, oranges, and yellows. These have long wavelengths. These colors wake us up. They stimulate our body and our mind. On the other side, you've got the cooler colors with the shorter wavelengths, green, blue, and indigo. These colors create a beautiful sense of calm, and they generally relax the mind, and they help us feel less fatigue and increase focus. Psychologist Carl Jung identified 4 color personalities based on the color energies, and he named them cool blue, sunshine yellow, peacemaker green, and fiery red. Why is this important? It's very important when you're dealing with clients, because you need to understand where they're coming from in their world around color and brand identity. Understanding these temperaments helps in assessing the individual's dominant color energy. So if you look at a red on a brand chart, what does red symbolize? Red symbolizes action. So if you're a fiery red personality, you're motivated, you're driven, you like to lead. If you look at blue on the sort of organogram of branding hierarchy, blue is about trust, professionalism, confidence. So the cool blue personality is all about confidence, and they're meticulous with the detail. And a little tip when you're dealing with a cool blue color temperament, never be late for an appointment that they set, because you won't get another appointment. And then we walk into the yellows. They're fun, they're positive. These characters are curious. They like to work in a fast-paced, collaborative environment. They don't like routine. Peacemaker green is all about balance and harmony. So when you're working with a peacemaker green, you need to understand they need time and space to make their decisions. The bottom line when you're dealing with personalities is we're all different. So you have the reds and blues that make decision based on reason. And then you have the more creative thinkers who make decisions based on feeling. So recognizing this in your colleagues and in your clients goes a long way towards effective communication, collaboration, and work satisfaction, because ultimately it leads to effective partnerships and hopefully some fantastic projects. Color plays an impactful role when we use it in different environments. In the next few slides, I'm going to take you through the use of color in a commercial, medical, educational, and retail environment. Let's kick off with this fire station in Lecco, Italy. It's built by Set Architects. The use of color here follows the color therapeutics guidelines in that warm, earthy, natural palette is very supportive to those employees working in a high-stress environment. They have also used the beautiful natural earthy palette in the exterior in order to blend this huge structure into the mountainous environment. But what I really love is the use of the red tones in the vertical panels. There's some sort of unexpected delight in seeing that on this very large structure. And there's also symbolic value in using the red tones because it's linked to the fire core. Energetic red is linked to the root meridian, and it connects us to our security and our stability. When you're selecting color for a brand, it must reflect the brand's identity. And I think this picture is a perfect example of the brave use of red. Red talks to belonging to a tribe. So if you think about a big brand like Coca-Cola, they're positioning themselves as a brand that's fun and friendly and full of excitement. The fast food industry often uses red. And I like to use an example of the lifestyle brand Red Bull that uses red to position itself as a brand that is associated with adrenaline and excitement. Moving on to our next slide in the healthcare section. Patients with dementia really benefit from the introduction of peachy pastel hues in their environments. These colors are wonderful in the form of being able to relax muscles. And this helps with patients who are often quite aggressive. The inclusion of orange is a fantastic statement color. And research has discovered that exposure to orange makes people feel less self-pity. I've also found that I'm using quite a lot of turquoise in areas like reception areas, because turquoise is a color that recharges us. It also makes us feel less anxious. Blue energy is linked to the throat and connects us to our self-expression. Healthcare and finance brands use blue in a lot of their logos and brand applications because it's the color that represents trust, professionalism, confidence. I really like the use of the blue on this, what could be a very sterile, white, high traffic passage is really lovely in that it mimics the sky. And I feel that it elevates the ceiling and it makes the space look much more tranquil for people who in a medical environment probably rather anxious about going into an operation, and it just makes them feel less anxiety. Once again, turquoise is an excellent color to introduce into wards. Be mindful that you don't use bright turquoise. It's more important that you go into the soft pastel hues, because this type of turquoise is not as stimulating, because the last thing you want to do in a hospital is overexcite people who are already going through all sorts of stress, anxiety, mental fatigue, illness. Restorative green is linked to our heart, and it connects us to our emotions. As long as architects, master architects, are embracing biophilia, you're going to see a lot more green coming through, not just in the health sector, but in all sectors, because green has fantastic restorative qualities and regenerative qualities. It's the color of balance, so it actually balances both mind and body. Faithful to Nature is a brand that uses green in its overall branding, and it positions itself as a brand that wants you to know it's committed to environmental sustainability. Joyful yellow. This color links us to our solar plexus, and it connects us to our self-image and our decision-making abilities. It's a fantastic color to use in an educational environment, but it's very important to recognize what yellows to use, because bright yellow is the color the eye recognizes before any other color. It overstimulates. Okay, so it's an exceptionally good color to use as attention-grabbing signage. But we're talking about an educational environment, possibly with ADD children, hyperactive children, who definitely do not need to be overstimulated. So my advice is rather use the yellow as a statement color and as an excellent navigational tool. As you can see from the slide, the yellow leads the children to their reading pots. If you are going to use yellow in a broad wall application, I would prefer you to go into the sponge yellows, the buttery yellows. All yellows stimulate concentration, but you need to understand where to use it and why you're using it. So just be careful with quantity when you're working with the bright yellows, but the moment you're working with your pastel yellows, you can use it quite liberally. This bakery/cafe in Germany, in my opinion, sums up where color is sitting in design right now. The use of the rich, earthy, warm tones actually help us feel grounded and connected to ourselves as we live in a world that's ever-changing and we're having to adapt. In terms of the design, notice the use of the curves. I love the curves in the lighting. Look at the archway. Look at the circular tables. All of these shapes soften the hard lines of what could be a very square space. The terracotta ceiling makes the space feel inviting and warm. It also lowers the ceiling, which creates a sense of intimacy. The bakery counter, with displaying the pastries, incorporates the use of a lovely, rich teal blue. And this is an excellent color, specifically in that position where you're selling pastries, where people actually focus and concentrate on what they're looking at. I really resonate with the feel-good factor of this space. But remember, color is subjective, and we all have our own personal feelings around how we feel in particular colors. So I'm going to leave it up to you to decide whether this would be your regular meet-up, coffee and croissant space. Looking at trends. Down to earth is how I would describe the trends that we're seeing coming through in design at the moment. We're seeing muted and shaded colors. They're all earthy, natural, warm, grounding colors. And these colors express our collective state of mind as sustainability and security become more and more necessary in our lives. Be prepared for the revival of cream. You're also going to notice a lot of tan, a lot of camel colors coming through, because brown is coming through in all the color palettes. Once again, We now know that brown grounds us. There seems to be a purposeful shift away from the grays that we've been seeing. And what you will notice is the injection of flamboyant color added into these environments. This is called dopamine decor. It uplifts us. The colors are very stimulating and very needed in a world where we're feeling a little depressed. The acidic yellows have got much more grounded with the addition of brown, and you're going to see a lot of golden ochre coming through, replacing some of these bright yellows. Blue is still a hero color, and it will remain one as long as we look at the environmental disaster that we've all created. The blues that you'll see coming through are the sky blues that relax and calm us, the teal blues that create focused concentration, and the turquoises that regenerate us. Black is not going away yet, but I am noticing we are adding a tint of brown into our blacks. Once again, the color becomes more open and collaborative with the addition of the brown tint. The real push in design right now is to create sanctuary-like environments, be it in a domestic space or in an office environment where you do areas where people can move away from their offices and just take a little bit of time out. Natural materials are coming through strongly, and the use of marble, the use of stone, the use of wood. I'm seeing a lot of cane incorporated into decor at the moment. Now we're going to get into a very simple rule on how to add color into a space. It's called the 60-30-10 principle. If you look at the slide, 60% of the color is divided between the gray floor and the wall. 30% would be your wonderful emerald, deep emerald green accent color, and 10% is divided between your wonderful wooden bench and the scatter cushions on top of the bench. Black and white is a very interesting topic when we talk color psychology. Because white has a high reflective value, it's incredibly draining on the eye. It makes people feel quite drained and empty. So if you're working in a hospital environment where white seems to be something that would promote orderliness, unfortunately the downside of it is it does leave workers and patients alike. It makes them feel vulnerable, empty, and actually quite isolated and alone. So please be aware when you're working with white in certain environments, it does have its negative side. Black absorbs light and it reflects nothing back. So when we're using black in color psychology, it has no merit. I would suggest, because darker colors are a trend and we're using a lot of dark color as statement color, to introduce the correct lighting so you can bring out the hue in the black, be it a green black or a purple black or a blue black. The moment there is lighting, there is reflection, and the reflection will either stimulate or relax the body. In closing, I'm going to pose a question to you. Are the selected brands of the color you're representing promoting the brand's ethos effectively? It's really important that our environments support us. We need to feel supportive in order to be creative. It motivates us. It makes us feel happier. Thank you for listening today. Please take a photograph of the QR code on my last slide, because this will take you to a website that gives you information on color psychology and where you must use certain colors, and it'll also give you ideas of when not to use certain colors. And I hope this helps you specify colors in your projects.